What if some of the most profound words attributed to Jesus were the ones that history chose to hide? What if a gospel filled with 114 sayings of the living Jesus was set aside, its message considered too radical for the official story? These are teachings that don't ask for worship, but offer something else entirely, a path to awakening the divine spark hidden within you. Our story begins not in a hushed cathedral, but in the shimmering sands of Egypt. In December of 1945, near Nag Hammadi, a farmer named Muhammad al-Salman was digging when his shovel struck a heavy clay jar. He hesitated, fearing a jinn might be trapped inside. But what he found was treasure of a different kind. 13 leather-bound books, codices that had slept in darkness for over 1,500 years. This discovery, now known as the Nag Hammadi Library, would send shockwaves through biblical scholarship. Among its dozens of texts was a complete copy of a gospel known only through fragments and condemnations by early church leaders. The Gospel of Thomas. This strange book opens with a bold claim. These are the secret sayings that the living Jesus spoke and which Didymus Judas Thomas did record. From that first line, you're in unfamiliar territory. There's no story of a nativity, nor one of an empty tomb. No miracles of walking on water, no narrative of Jesus' life, no crucifixion, and no resurrection. It is simply a collection of 114 sayings, a stream of poetic, cryptic, and powerful utterances. Think of it this way. If the familiar Gospels are like a biography that tells you the story of a great chef, the Gospel of Thomas is like the chef's personal recipe book. It doesn't tell you about him. It gives you his recipes and invites you to cook the meal yourself. As the very first saying promises, whoever discovers the interpretation of these sayings will not taste death. Here we find the ideas that diverge so sharply from what became Christian orthodoxy. First, a total reimagining of the kingdom of God. The Gospels we know often describe the kingdom as a future promise or a place in the hereafter. Thomas's Jesus seems to reject this. He says, if your leaders say to you, look, the imperial rule is in the sky, then the birds of the sky will precede you. If they say to you, it is in the sea, then the fish will precede you. Bless rather, the imperial rule is inside you and outside you. The kingdom isn't a distant island you must sail to. It's the very ocean you're already in. A reality spread out before us if only we had the eyes to see. Next, Thomas redefined salvation. It's seen not as a reward for belief, but as the result of the spiritual work of self-knowledge. One of the most powerful lines in the text says, if you bring forth what is within you, what you bring forth will save you. If you do not bring forth what is within you, what you do not bring forth will destroy you. Salvation here is not a prize given for obedience. It's more like nurturing a seed. The potential for the entire tree is already inside that seed, and salvation is the act of cultivating it, of discovering the divine light that already burns inside you. Knowing yourself is to be known by God. Finally, this leads to the idea that the distance between you and the divine is an illusion. The path is direct and personal. There's no mention of a church, priests, or sacraments as necessary intermediaries. Jesus says, split a piece of wood. I am there. Lift a stone, and you will find me there. The sacred isn't locked away in a single treasure chest. It breathes in everything. So if these teachings are so resonant, why did they fade from view? The answer lies in the complex currents of early Christianity. In the first few centuries, there wasn't one version of Christianity, but many. It was like a vast, wild forest with countless different paths leading in every direction. A powerful stream of thought was Gnosticism, which taught that salvation came from Gnosis, a Greek word for knowing. The Gospel of Thomas, with its focus on secret wisdom and looking inward, was embraced by groups like these. But as a more unified church structure began to form, it needed a single clear path for everyone. A control mechanism, so to speak. It was as if they chose to pave one single, narrow path through that forest and declare the other, wider paths to be dangerous. Teachings that celebrate a direct internal path to God could be seen as a challenge to an institution built on the authority of bishops. A gospel that gives you the map directly lessens the need for an official guide. And so, as a single orthodox view solidified, texts like Thomas were declared heretical. They were marginalized, neglected, and eventually disappeared, some buried for safekeeping by those who cherished them, waiting in the desert to be found again. These rediscovered sayings remind us that history is never a single story, but a chorus of many voices, some louder than others. For centuries, we've only heard a few of those voices. If you feel called to explore these hidden currents of thought and to keep questioning the stories we've been told, make sure to contribute and join the conversation by leaving a comment. The Gospel of Thomas doesn't ask you to worship Jesus. It asks you to understand his words, and through them, to understand yourself. It suggests that the greatest spiritual pilgrimage isn't a journey to a holy land, but the one that travels inward to the soul. These weren't just lost words. They were a lost current in a deep river, a current that whispers that the divine isn't a distant king to be petitioned, but a living presence to be awakened to, hidden in plain sight, and waiting inside you. Think about it.